Hello, and welcome back to Zen and Iron. My name is Kozan. I am a martial artist, a fitness enthusiast, and a student of 16th generation samurai Zen Takai. Today we're going to be talking about failure in the gym and in life. We'll be talking about some of my biggest failures and what I learned from them. We'll be talking about the Japanese idiom Nana Korobi Ya Oki. We will be talking about failure as a teacher, about reframing failure. We'll leave you with some practical tips for learning from your failures. So let's review. Some of my biggest failures. Number one, starting my own business. This was in 2018, and though it failed, I learned quite a lot. I learned what it takes to sustain a business. I learned all of the costs associated with starting a business and all of the process for registering an LLC, opening a bank account, the whole process there. Ultimately, I will take those lessons and apply them to future ventures. Number two, moving into a place I couldn't afford. Unfortunately, I did this multiple times. It happened that the second time I lost a job, and that's why I couldn't afford to pay it, so I had to improvise. But ultimately, it was not the brightest move. 3, getting back into a toxic relationship. Not only did I leave a toxic relationship, but I went back to one. So sometimes it takes multiple tries to learn these lessons. And I consider that widely a failure, but I also took from that what to look for and what not to look for in a relationship. So I knew all the red flags I needed to avoid when it came to dating. And because of this, I am in a much healthier relationship currently. Number 4, fitting my entire life into my car and moving across the country. Having done that twice now, I learned quite a lot. Road tripping alone with 15 hours on the road, multiple days, was extremely difficult. Drove to California. I drove from Connecticut to California, and then California to Connecticut. Number 5, countless bad dates. I cannot tell you. I think I've lost count at how many times I've been rejected, had failed interactions, and failed dates. But from them, I learned quite a bit. Number 6, starting an online community. I had a different Instagram account. This was started in 2020. This was pretty much over the course of the pandemic, and it was centered around Star Wars. And largely, I consider that a failure in that I could not sustain the account, the followers. I could not continue growing it. And through a variety of factors, not just my own doing, but also there were copyright issues and my account kept getting flagged for some reason. So there were a lot of obstacles that I learned to avoid when it comes to Instagram and fostering online community. And then finally, live performances between classical music, piano, and martial arts. I have made my share of mistakes, and I learned from that to identify weaknesses and drill them even harder so that they cease to become weaknesses. Ultimately, with all of these, you have to acknowledge the feelings. They are failures. Rejection hurts. It does not feel good to fall short of your goals, but once you let those emotions and feelings move through you, then you can focus on the growth that will come from all of these negative experiences. And focusing on the positive is one of the key factors that we will examine later on. So the Japanese phrase, it's an idiom, Nana Korobi Ya Oki. It means 7 falls, 8 rises. Resilience isn't about how many times you fall. It is about even if you fall, you rise again. So failure only happens when you give up and you choose not to rise. Setbacks are opportunities. Challenges are stepping stones. And an arrow can only be shot by pulling it backwards. So these are all pertinent to this idiom. They all speak to setbacks, steps backwards, challenges, obstacles, failures, and falling. Developing resilience and strength and the will to continue is central to the samurai ethos. It is about being unyielding and relentless, and understanding that failure happens, falling happens, you are not perfect, but it's that you get up again, and that you continue to progress and continue to move forward despite all the setbacks. Failure as a teacher. Failure provides valuable experience. If you have never failed, if you have never fallen, you don't know how to deal with it. So having the experience of, I've seen this before. I know what to do. I know how to deal with this. I know what these feelings are. It's incredibly valuable. It reveals your weaknesses and areas that you need to improve upon. And it can force you to adapt and improvise and think of solutions that you may not have thought of had you not failed. It's also good for humility and keeps your ego in check, because winning all the time is not good for the ego. You get an overinflated sense of self and you think that you're invincible, and that is simply not the case. It can also be a great source of empathy. If you have failed, you can empathize with people who may be down, who maybe have recently fallen, and assure them that, yes, this experience hurts, but look at the positives. I can tell you from experience, I know how it feels, but this is how you can move on. As long as you stand up and you continue to move forward, keep your chin up, it can be a great help to people. Reframing failure. If you focus on the lessons and the growth, if you see obstacles as stepping stones, and you focus on the positive aspects of what you're experiencing, it makes the failure a lot more bearable. It makes falling a lot more tolerable. Redirection, so that you are exactly where you need to be. A lot of times, failure drives us onto a path that we may not have seen or considered, that often suits us far better than the path we were on before we failed. And so it's an important part. It is protection and redirection of our path. Failure in the gym. This one is very, very important, because muscle growth only happens when muscles are damaged and then allowed to repair. Taking a muscle to or near failure, when you have absolutely no reps in reserve, when you're doing an exercise and the muscle does not go despite your will to raise the weight, that is muscular failure. That is the only way to consistently see growth. And the only way to do that is to consistently fail. So you are either adding weight or reps and getting to that failure point every time, because that is how you build back stronger. That's how muscle grows. That is strength and hypertrophy. Just as in life, failure in the gym builds strength and resilience, just on a muscular level, but also mentally. Taking yourself to the point where you have to fail, the muscle fails, is incredibly taxing, and it takes a lot of mental resilience. So doing that consistently builds up your tolerance to it. And then finally, some practical tips. Number 1, journal, to keep track of the lessons you've learned and to see how far you've come. A lot of times we forget our accomplishments, we forget the challenges we've overcome, and so journaling and keeping track of the failures and the lessons you take from them can be hugely important. Also, writing things out really helps you process things. Number 2, don't be so hard on yourself when you do fail. I am absolutely guilty of this, especially after a live performance when I feel like I messed up. I got really hard on myself, felt like the entire experience was not good, when in fact, if I had simply made less of my mistakes and less of my failures and just carried on, it wouldn't have been so noticeable. So don't be so hard on yourself. Number 3, surround yourself with supportive people. Having friends or family that can help you see the positive aspects of things can be a huge benefit, because when you've failed, sometimes it warps your perspective, and it's hard to stay positive and see the lessons and the benefits and the pros of this negative experience. So having people that can help you reframe is incredibly helpful. And then finally, number 4, be grateful for the failure, because even in defeat, if you are grateful, you're in a better position. You can see the lessons you've learned. You can see a more positive route out of it. And then you can rise again from that. Ultimately, it is not how many times we fall, only that we choose to pick ourselves back up again. If you've enjoyed this, please consider liking and subscribing. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please put them in the comment section. I look forward to hearing from you. If there are any topics you would like to see covered, please put them there as well. Until next time, train with honor, live with purpose, and continue to forge your path. Take care.